us to start by observing a moment of silence for Harry Thuku, who in 1922 was arrested somewhere around here. We are on Harry Thuku Road. And he was exiled for his demand for political and economic rights, especially land rights.
A moment of silence for Mary Muthoni Nyanjiru, a legendary real-life woman who challenged men, take our skirts and we will take your trousers, and fight if you don't, for Harry Thuku's release. She was among the first to die when colonialist forces opened fire on the protesting crowd, including settlers from the veranda of the Norfolk Hotel, which is just across.
A moment of silence for Betty Kavata, who lingered paralyzed and brain damaged for 5 months before she succumbed to her injuries inflicted by her husband for, quote, not serving him meat for dinner. A moment of silence for Nelson Mandela, for Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, for Rosa Parks and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., for Thomas Sankara and the Ogoni Nine,
for Solomon Muruli and for Karimi Ndutu,
for Koitalel Arab Samoe and Wayakiwahiga,
for the Kapenguria Six,
for Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi Washiori,
for Steve Biko and Chris Annie,
for Bishop Alexander Muge and Bishop Cornelius Korir,
for Julius Nyerere and Biki Dude,
for Baby Pendo,
for the victims and survivors of Kiambaa fire, of Westgate, of Garissa University attack, of Mpeketoni, Migori, Kawangware, Mathare, Kibra, and many other places that suffer untold acts of violence every day.
For the victims of Kenya's electoral political violence in 2017, 2013, 2007, 2008, 2002, 1997, 1991, 1992, and on, including the struggle for independence.
For Yemen, for the Democratic Republic of Congo, the occupied territories, especially Gaza, Syria, Togo, Libya, Iraq, South Sudan, the victims of war, climate justice, greed, sexual and gender-based violence, the victims of xenophobia, racism, sexism, refugees, for known and unknown, or unarmed victims of all things, conditions, and inequalities that ail our fragile planet.
We remember, we honor, and we mourn their suffering, our broken humanity. Thank you. Please be seated.
I'm going to say a little bit about the inequality crisis that the world is in and why people are coming together across the world, but also why people are so excited that we are meeting today here in Nairobi. When we grow up, when we're being brought up by our mums and dads, and when we go to church or we go to mosque or we go to temple, we learn some basic values. And one of the things that we are taught is that everybody is special and everybody matters. But when we look today at our societies, we see that we are not living those values. Why is it that in Lavington or Kileleshwa, people have clean water to water their flowers with? And yet in Kibera and Kawangware, people do not have clean water for their children to drink. Why do the top 1% of people have more than half of the wealth? Why is it that in a country like Kenya, just a few thousand families own most of the wealth? It doesn't have to be that way. It can change. Now, people came together in the Fight Inequality Alliance for 3 reasons. The first was that whatever the issue they were working on, education, health, women's rights, refugees, water, democracy, civil society space, they found that inequality was getting in the way of achieving their goal. So they had to work on inequality. And the second reason they came together was they found that they couldn't do it on their own. That no one organization, however wonderful, no one organization can do it on their own. We need each other. And the third thing they've realized, and the most important part of the Fight Inequality Alliance, is that we need to organize people. It's not enough simply to ask the rich and powerful to give us things. We need to organize ourselves. Alone, we are weak. Together, we are strong. It is very, very difficult work that we all do in our communities. But there is hope, and the hope comes from our unity. So just being here today, all of you, and the conversations you'll have, is the beginning of change.
As women, we suffer a lot of inequality because of the gender, also sometimes as young women because of the age. In Kenya, as you know, we have retrogressive culture and taboos, where women are not allowed to own land or access even control, and even are not even given time or included in the decision-making issues of land. So that's the reason made me to climb Kilimanjaro, to raise the voice of women, so that we can get space, our voice can be heard, so that we can get redress and have equality in all spaces. And in this year, first anniversary that was done in Addis Ababa, where I took part, we prioritized the issues of demand, and we came with indicators and what to be done so that women can access land, can control, and even we lobby for the space in regional bodies like the AU, so that our Kenyan women can have their voice be heard. So it's high time for us women and the young women at large, so that we stand up for our rights. Land is the source of everything. It's the mother to development. So if we own land and access and control, then that means the economical and social status of our women will improve and our livelihoods will increase. Thank you very much.
We meet here, as we discussed, in the spirit of Mekatilili, the two Marys, and also the spirit of Karimindudu. 2008, some of us heard the cries of a head teacher, some students, and some parents that went to the Langata Road Primary School. And on arrival there, we discovered that the school was about to lose its playground, about 2 acres of its playground, to make way for a parking lot for a hotel that was owned by politicians, including the deputy president. You know the story very well. The school was reclaimed. A lot of children got tear gas that day, and nobody was arrested. That campaign in 2015 basically has grown to a point that we have discovered that actually Langata Road Primary School was not the only school that faced this problem. 41% of our schools, all 29,000 schools across Kenya, 41% of them are either in court or they are struggling to hold on to the land that they deserve. In 2017, 1,000 schools have been titled as a result of a campaign that started in Langata Road. About 30 to 40 titles have been revoked. These are titles that had been irregularly processed by land grabbers, and one of those is Lavington Green Primary School. And a campaign has started, which is led by the Ministry of Lands and the National Lands Commission, school teachers under KEPSHA and KESHA, the two national associations to protect schools. 2 years ago also, a young security worker was going home one night at about midnight. He was returning from work, and he was knocked down by a vehicle on Wayaki Way. He was put in an ambulance. The ambulance proceeded to take him to 4 hospitals, and for the next 18 hours, he was denied emergency health care. That man was called Alex Madaga. His widow, Jessica Mura, took on his case, and 2 years later, what we have is essentially a judgment from the Kenya Medical Board that those 4 hospitals, in denying Alex Madaga his due emergency care under the Constitution, that they acted illegally and irregularly, and they were censured. The person that knocked down Alex Madaga was fined 2.5 million shillings as a result of a legal case. And although that can never bring back a loved one, it is an example of how the widow, Jessica Moran, did not allow his death to go in vain. The Health Act that was passed in June this year, for the last 6 months of its debate in Parliament, was called the Alex Madaga Bill by parliamentarians. In that act, it is now a criminal offense for an administrator or a hospital to deny emergency health care to anybody, any citizens, regardless of what their income is or their ethnicity or where in the country they come from. And it is finable up to 3 million shillings should it happen. The third story is a story of two women. But let me just create the context. Every day, a mother dies in 20 women die in childbirth. 20 women every day in Kenya die in childbirth because they do not get the treatment that they require, either before they give birth or while they're giving birth. This year, there have been 15 cases now of mothers who have been detained in hospitals and facilities because they could not pay for the cost of their treatment. Despite the fact that we have a constitution, despite the fact that we have a government, despite the fact we have a parliament and a judiciary, and despite the fact that we believe in inequality. 15 women. There are the 4 women of Bungoma that were locked in a basement until they could find a few thousand shillings to leave with their children. There is police officer Judith Amoit, who was detained for 1 month with her dead twins because she couldn't pay, or the Kenya Police Service couldn't pay her bills. Now, this also from an equality point of view is important. 98% of the cases of women who die in childbirth come from no more than 15 counties. Okay? 15 counties produce 98% of the women who die at childbirth. So we need to think again in terms of what are we doing to keep women safe as they do something that is important for us all. But this is the story of courage. 2 women, Margaret Oliel and Maimuna, 2 years ago got a judgment from a court, and they took Pumwani Hospital, maternity hospital, to court, and they said that their detention was illegal and unfair, and they received a settlement of close to 3 million shillings each for that action. So what do these 3 stories have in common? Is that we will only see the fruits of a government, of a constitution, and of a judiciary if citizens remain awake. And they demand that which is theirs by their constitution, and that is theirs by their human dignity. Lastly, when will we have enough medicine? And for those of us, particularly for those of us with young men in our urban settlements, places like Korogosho, Dandora, Mathare, Kibra, Kawangware, when can we bring up young men that will not die in a hail of bullets from our police officers? When will that be also part of the Kenyan dream? So I hope this provokes you. I hope the conversation is a great conversation. And I thank you very much for listening to me.
So we've had 3 speakers. We had Irungu, we had Joyce, and we had Ben. So this is a time for you as the audience to come up with questions. So if you have any questions, kama kuna maswali, unataka kuwauliza wale wameongea.
KG is my stage name. KG is aka Heavyweight. I come from Dandora, Hip Hop City. I'm a rapper. My first question goes to, I think, Dr. Ben. You've been in the ghetto in Dandora, and you see how we do it. So by me being a rapper, shouldn't be judged like how I talk, how I'm dressed, you know. You were there when we were launching our music, Dr. Ben, and you've heard the stories, you've seen it in the ghetto, man. And my first question goes, man, I'm just tired of this dietary of stray bullets and tear gas. A 6-month-old is just shot dead. In ghetto, my youth, I come from Dandora, not only in Dandora alone, Kibra, Kawangware, and all those ghettos. So by me saying I'm an artist, I do come here, perform, maybe at time I exit in late hours. So in Dandora, there was a group. It was formed in social media. Something called like, hey, see what Dandora, and some weird stuff of name. So just given, you can't put on your chains, you know I'm a rapper. I should do it in style, in swag. I got my Timberland shoes, rugged, snapback and chains. So I can't do it in style just because there's someone called AC. I'll be suspected and shot dead. You're not given warning. So my question goes to the able panelists seated over there. I think no police officer is given a gun to shoot down a youth in reference to some constitutional articles and the Constitution. You should be arrested and be jailed. So I don't understand how these people called AC can't allow us to live in peace. You're just given warning, you're shot, even ladies. It's weird nowadays. We have our parents seated right here, our younger brothers and sisters. I'm speaking so passionately on it. You're just shot, and it's a story. Get a fake gun. Think Dr. Ben can be a witness on it. Saw you over there the other time. We just launched the music and we spit lyrics straight deep down my soul, how I feel on it. And I'm so glad to be on this panel, specifically this day right here on a sad talk. So my question goes to the panelists over there. Thank you so much.
So just very quickly, thank you so much for coming and for what you said. I took my children to Dandora, my little 9-year-old girl and 12-year-old boy, and everybody was very surprised because people don't normally see Wazungu Mwedogo in Dandora. But what I wanted to say, and the reason why I brought them, is because I wanted them to see the talent that is in Dandora. People think of Dandora as the place of bad boys and rubbish dumps. It's the place of brilliant, brilliant talent and wonderful hip-hop artists like you, and people need to value what you do. So I think the most important thing is all of the lies that are said about the young boys of Dandora or of Kibra. The most important thing is do not absorb those lies. Never believe them about yourself. And because what you have done just in terms of being able to stick in school, to find work, to make a hustle, to keep going despite all of the horror around you is an incredible, powerful achievement. And you're an achiever, and people need to look up to you and to respect you, and I hope that they do. And you are now a model for other young people. So what I would say to you is believe in yourself, and I would say to the elderly people around here, let's not say that our young men are trash. They're not. Our young men are incredibly talented and powerful and brilliant, and young men like him are doing amazing things. We need to admire and respect and appreciate what they're doing and thank them for their work. And the stuff that you're doing is brilliant, and I just hope that you keep going. I also hope that if people are from another place, if people are from Kibra or Korogoshua, that they don't think Dandora is some mystery place they can never go to. There's friends for you there. And the power will come when people unite together across ethnicities and languages and across settlements. People are doing amazing things on their own and in their one place, but together they will have a phenomenal power. But mainly I wanted to say thank you for welcoming me and my family when I came to Dandora, and Tutu and Nana very soon.
Thank you.
Hi, so my name's Alisha, and I'm interning in Kenya for the next 6 months. So when I was out, there was a group of boys who were dancing outside the club, and I thought, okay, these guys are, really good dancers, they've got talent, and me and my friends were like, what can we do to help these guys, because why are they dancing late at night? So I went down to speak to them and asked them, why are you dancing at night? You got talent, etc. And said it's hard to get opportunities in Kenya. So I came up with a plan, and this was in June, and I've just come back and spoke to them again and said, if I can get them a venue to practice, and then once they've practiced, they can go and try and go to different venues to showcase their talents, what would they say? And they were like, okay, we can do that, but we don't have money. So I said to them, what I'll do is, for the first 3 months, I will fund it from my own money, and then from there try and generate an income. So in terms of, once I get a venue, is invite people to practice dancing as a fitness, but obviously people pay them, and then we pay the hall. So they were like, yeah, that's really good. So when I started speaking to people were like, why are you helping them? They're just troubled children. They're not going to do anything. They're just the youth. And I think to myself, the problem for me in Kenya is the mindset of people. So my question to the panelists is, as a foreigner but born in Kenya, how do I get people on my side to see that there's a reason why these kids are out there. It's not their fault. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks to themselves, oh, I'm just going to go in the streets and dance. No one wakes up or no one's born wanting to suffer. So in terms of assisting, how can I get people on my side to see that these kids have talent and all they want to do is better themselves?
I'll try, or I'll get it started. I think this is a challenge for many communities, and in organizing, the people who are here from Dora, from Kibra, from the Tumukurus, from Kikuyu, from Kabete, and all of those places are here because they are organized and acting with others. So the idea of people coming together and connecting with other groups, and that's what the Fight Inequality Alliance has done. If you look at the list of organizations that have helped put this event together, and then reached out to the communities that we work in, because I do think it's very difficult for whether you are in Dandora, whether you are in Kibra, whether you are in Kawangware and doing your thing, to get beyond that and to be seen as something beyond being a troublemaker or an idler. And I think that as we go through this morning, there are lots of organizations. I think he would be a great resource for you. Right there, he would be a great resource for you in terms of how he got started and where to go and all of that. But I also think that for all of us, in our communities, even within whether it is county or national government structures, there are opportunities that exist, and we should try to be able to connect with them. Something like the Constituency Development Fund, the CDF, the National Government CDF Fund, has money for youth and sports and all kinds of activities. And like Irungu was saying, many of us don't know what is available. So those connections with people who have done it, who are struggling, who are doing it, would be a very good place to start to connect. And I encourage you to link with the people from Dandora, the people from Kibra, and maybe before we do the next session, we can, or the next round of speakers, we can identify the groups that are here, and so that people begin to make the connection.
Hamjambo. Naitwa Gaide kutoka Dot of Mobi. Nilikuwa nataka kuuliza swali. Ni kwa nini wakati tunatafuta haki yetu watu wengi wanafanya jambo ile haifai? Yaani watafuta haki kwa kutumia njia ile haifai. Wengine wanatoa maandamano, wanaharibu magari, wanachoma nyumba, wengine wanapigana. Ni kwa nini watu wanafanya hivyo? Baada ya haki kupatikana, kunapatikana maovu, watu wanakufa, mali inaharibika. Ni nini watu wanakosa kwa kutumia njia ile inafaa kwa kutafuta haki yao?
Naona kama Kenya ama kama jamii tumekosa maadili, kwa sababu demonstration hata katika katiba yetu ya Kenya inaruhusiwa. Lakini ukienda kufanya demonstration, unafaa uifanye kwa njia inayofaa, si kuiba wala kuua mtu wala kufanya vituko vingine. Kwa hivyo ni sisi kama jamii tumekosa yale maadili, na pia yale maadili ndio huwa yanatusaidia kufikia yale malengo yetu. Na unapata kuwa unatetea haki, lakini kwa sababu tumekosa maadili, tumeiba, tumefanya nini, tunaonekana hata kile kitendo cha kudai haki kilikuwa kibaya. Kwa hivyo ni sisi kama jamii tuangalie tumekosea wapi, turegeshe yale maadili yetu vizuri. Tukienda kama ni demonstration tunataka haki yetu, acha ile kitu ambayo imetupeleka pale, tufate kile. Ile mambo ya kuiba nini tuachane nayo, na hapo naona mambo yatakuwa sawa. Asante.
I want to answer that question. It's a very important one, and there are two sides to it. A demonstration is a right in a democracy. It is a right for people to come together and express their view. freedom of assembly, freedom of association. It's a right in a democracy for people to come together and make a demand on their leaders. Now, there are two problems in doing that. But if I understood you, you were talking about some people who come to demonstrate and instead loot, get violent, and do things that are not peaceful. That is a misunderstanding of the right. And that is common, it's true, because our people sometimes don't know how to function in a democracy, how to use the rights they have in a democracy. So that can happen, that when you come to demonstrate, that others use the opportunity to loot, to fight, to do violent things, and not to be peaceful and voice. So we need to educate, raise awareness, show people that our power is in peacefully demonstrating. But there's a second side, which is how governments respond when people exercise their right to voice, to assemble, to associate. Now, there is a man, a famous judge in America. He was called Luis Brandeis. He said something that I always repeat. He said, and listen to it carefully. He said, you can have wealth, a lot of wealth concentrated in the hands of a few people, and the rest in poverty. Or you can have democracy, but you can't have both. Do you get it? You can't have democracy and also have these huge levels of inequality where few people own everything and others have nothing. If you have such a situation, you cannot also have democracy. So what do we see? What we are seeing here in our continent in Africa, I'm talking like an African woman, is we see our leaders choosing inequality over democracy. So they will suppress democracy in order to sustain this injustice of inequality. Because when there's this wide inequality, people question, because it's unjust. These people who've got so much wealth didn't get it in the right way. So when people question, when people ask, why don't we have education? Why don't we have health? Why is this? Instead of addressing that inequality, they suppress democracy. They suppress the voice of people. Do you get it? So the reaction of many governments is undemocratic. It's against democracy, so that injustice can remain. And we can't accept that. We just have to keep on fighting peacefully. We just have to keep on insisting on this right and defending democracy and the right to speak. Now, my comments are going to be about those two words. I'm going to unpack the word fight and the word inequality. From a very cultural perspective, as I said, why do we fight? Fight here is associated with struggle. Why do we struggle? Struggle is associated, and why is it honorable? Why does it make me proud to say I'm a woman of struggle? Because struggle is associated with a cause. And what are those causes? What's the cause of the struggle? That takes us to the third thing, and that's what Ben started with, values, what we believe in. And what is it that we believe in? It's what Njoki started with, those words of Martin Luther King. What we value. What we value comes from what we have learned, what our parents, our grandparents taught us. And for me, as an African woman, and even, I would say, for a European woman, or an Asian woman and man, we learn that every human being born in this world is valuable. and equal with another one, has the same value. And those are the things we fight for. Those are the causes we fight so that that value is asserted in this world. Then comes the second word, inequality. That one is also a hard one for us. Why? Because are we talking about this lazy man in the village who spends his day drinking, and the other one who spends his day in the shamba and has a good harvest? Are we saying those must be equal? So when you say inequality, I don't know what words you use, but you need to construct the right language in Kiswahili or Kikuyu or whichever language you speak to explain that we are not saying that everybody in this world must be the same and have the same wealth and the same house no. We are looking at that extreme inequality that results in a few at the top getting so much out of our countries and leaving millions behind, trapped in poverty and in miserable lives. It is extreme inequality. Let me describe it. Since 2010, that's like 8 years ago, the number of billionaires in Africa has doubled. And in the same period of time, or maybe 15 years, the number of poor people, very poor people, has increased by 50 million. So what is it that's causing a few people at the top to increase their wealth? And to have a few more people at the top with more and more wealth, billions, and yet poverty is increasing. And all this time they are saying our countries in Africa are getting richer. So we look at the causes. Say, why is it like that? Take a country like, there's a country there near Congo called Equatorial Guinea. That country is as rich as Spain. But the number of women who die every day from childbirth, during childbirth, is higher than even in my country, Uganda, which is low income, poor at the bottom. How can that be? That is the inequality that is so unjust that we are talking about. What do we know that drives this inequality or can reduce it? We know that if you give everybody, every child, a good education and give everyone health care, so if you fall sick, you can go and access good health care, see a medical professional, get medicine, be treated. That those two things lift so many people out of poverty and reduce inequality, because then young people, older people are healthy, are trained, and are able to raise incomes and make good lives for themselves. Health and education reduces inequality if you provide to everybody. That's a solution to inequality. Free, quality education and health. Then come to agriculture, where most of our people are. We know that our agriculture, our food, our lives are sustained by smallholder farmers. That woman and her hoe on a small shamba. That is what feeds us. The big farms are also there. They also produce, they add, but we are sustained by the effort of small farmers. And what do our governments tell us now? Yeah, we must support agriculture, but we must put it in the big companies. They are the ones who are going to deliver us. Have you seen big farming projects where you find greenhouses abandoned and tractors? Haven't you seen them? In my country, they are there, and in other African countries. They give them money, even government loans, to start big farms. When things go wrong, they pack and go. Has any smallholder farmer ever packed and gone? Do you say, I have failed farming, I'm leaving my land? No. We know smallholder farming works, it feeds us, it feeds the world. But these big projects that they are putting the money in, we're not even sure that they work, and many times they don't. And why is that? That's the third point. Why is it that money doesn't go into education, into health, into agriculture, into the needs of poor people? Because the other factor of inequality, that the decision-making has also been captured by those who are very wealthy. So the decisions that are made favor themselves, don't favor the people who are the majority and who suffer poverty. That's an inequality in decision-making. And we call it actually political capture. So we need to work on that too. The inequality of voice, inequality of power. That's at the heart of things. And how do we have to work on that? It's not necessarily by joining a political party and going to fight. That's okay, that's your right. But it is about claiming the voice of ordinary people, starting in the community. I want to finish by talking about money and how money is raised by our governments. You know, in the last 10 or so years in this continent, we've been doing well. And we've been doing well partly because our governments are getting a bit smarter about how to manage, but mainly because of external factors. Prices of our commodities were high. There was a good price, especially for minerals. Those countries with minerals were getting good money for copper, for gold, there was good money. And there was also good money for prices of coffee and tea and so on. But then came a financial crisis that hit the rich countries. Then came a slowing down of the Chinese economy, which the Chinese were the ones consuming most of our stuff here. They are now slowing, so they are not buying a lot from us. So now our economies are slowing. Then what happens? When we had a boom and there was money, they were building our roads, they were doing a few good things, and we were seeing progress. But progress that wasn't really reaching poor people, but some people. But now, when they get less money, what do? They say, oh, we don't have enough in the budget. Instead of saying, let those who are very rich, the big companies who make the money pay more, they say, no, let's cut the services for poor people. That's when they start saying, pay for education, pay for your health, pay for this. They reduce the services for ordinary people. And they tax us more through VAT. Instead of putting that burden on the big companies who are making the big profits and who are banking them abroad. So there's an issue there of how our money is raised from us, and also how services are reduced from ordinary people. So those issues are also important to address. So I want to conclude and say that all this has got a gender dimension. All this hurts women and girls more than men and boys, especially because of the culture that we have that gives preference, privilege to men and boys.
Often we face issues affect us differently as women, but not just because we are women, but because we are either young women or elderly women, or women that live in rural areas, or women that are refugee women.
So even just being a woman is not what defines the way issues affect you. It is also other identities. And so I stand here to speak from that kind of perspective, from that kind of realities and experience. And I want to start with the Oxfam report findings, which is became my favorite because it is such an eye-awakening in terms of really showing how we're experiencing inequalities in the world. That was published last year, which says that 8 men own as much wealth as the wealth owned by half the world's population. And in Africa, what statistics are telling us again is that the 6 out of the 10 most unequal countries in the world are actually in sub-Saharan Africa. And in almost all countries in Africa, what we experience as women is that women have almost no access or control over economic resources. They have no access to decent work. They have no control over their own time or bodies, and or participate equally in decision making, whether it is in politics, social or economic. So when we talk about women's body, what do we mean that women don't control or even have a say on their own bodies? Like my body, when I'm walking in the street, a man from somewhere on the street feels he has a right to come and touch my body without my permission. That man makes me feel that I don't own my own body. I think you remember here in Kenya when we had a campaign in 2015 of Justice for Liz. You remember that campaign, right? Justice for Liz? A young woman, 16-year-old in Busia County, who was gang raped by 6 men? Gang raped, thrown in a pit latrine, and was left there to rot. When these men were reported to the police told these young men, slash grass as a punishment and go back home. Does that make sense? Isn't that one way women experience inequality? But also you remember the campaign on My Dress, My Choice. Do you remember that campaign? Yes. So My Dress, My Choice was born out of frustration when women would walk on the bus station, in the bus park, minding their own business, going to work, going to school, and their clothes are ripped off simply because they are either tight because someone perceives them to be tight, or they are short, or, typically being harassed when you are doing your own business. You have not interfered with anyone, you have not abused anyone, but simply you are a woman, someone who feels that you should not dress a certain way, you should dress another way. Again, another example is girls, over 200 girls abducted in Nigeria, Chiboko girls. And so again, when you look at, we talked about resources. I think previous speakers have talked about a lot of inequality around resources and ownership of resources, And the reality is, it's not just about poor people owning less resources. It's also about that even within the poor category, women face and are hurt by poverty differently. So for example, here in Kenya, despite the fact that almost the population of men and women is equal, women own only 1% of the land. Only 1%, that's according to FIDA report. This is a country where 89% of subsistence farming labor force is provided by women. 89%. But yet, in terms of owning the land, it's 1%. So meaning we are farming land that we don't own, we have no control over. As you are farming, a man can come anytime and sell it without asking you, which means you lose the livelihood and you are expected to provide food because you are the woman for the family. So it's not that the problem is that women do that work, it's that that work is not recognized, it's not valued, it's not rewarded. And the problem is, that's not the only work they do. So they expect to do all that work, and they also expect to do the work outside the household or outside the unpaid care work. So they will still do paid work. The final thing, I think we touched on it around the global inequality that exists within the global system and how that impacts on us. So if our governments are not able to, for example, tax multinational companies here that come to operate here, it means our governments are not able to get the resources they need to actually provide services. But also it means our governments are relying more on VAT, which is also paid more by women. And it is often women's income that is spent a lot on those on those products. The research shows that. And men's income often is spent more on investments. So what that means is, when the government is relying more on VAT, it means the government is actually taxing more women than it is taxing men. And it is also taxing those with less income than those with higher income, such as the big companies. It is often not just about looking for more resources. It is how those resources are shared and distributed among people. And also, it is not, for women and girls, it's not just about, tackling the income inequalities and the need for basic needs, but it is also about, fighting for equal voice, for equal power, for equal status, for us to be treated as equal citizens. Because as it is now, women are constantly treated as second-hand citizens. That is why, whether it is in politics, in Kenya, we are still struggling with the basic right of the two-third gender principle. And so our struggles is to also struggle to achieve gender equality and for women to be treated as equal citizens.
Mimi nimesimama hapa, nafanya na kazi na Wangu Kanja Foundation. Pale kwa Wangu Kanja Foundation, tunafanya kazi mingi pale kwa ground. But moreover bado tunafanya na the CHVs wako ndani yetu na the gender defenders. Sisi huwa tunafanya referrals. Na it was a hard, ni kazi ngumu ile tunafanya pale. You can imagine, mama amekuwa raped, yani amebakwa, si ndio? Amebakwa na amewachwa tu kama vile Elizabeth alibakwa upande wa it was in Busia, pahali aliwachwa na akatupwa. But today, if it was gender defenders, tungefanya nini gender defenders? Tungemuokoa. We were taught on how to kusave hawa wasichana na hawa kina mama. Tulikuwa mpaka na mambo ya evictions. Si tulikuwa tunabomolewa kimabavu. Na you can imagine we are living in kwa nyumba ya iron sheet. Ile unaweza kararua tu hivi na karatasi. Na today, do you know what? Lea, hauwezi ukabomolea mwanamke kwa kijiji. Hauwezi ukabomoa. Is it true? Yes. Sisi tukibomolea tunafanya nini? Tunaandamana. Na sisi hatuandamani kupigana. Is it true? Yes. We had a night vigil. Wangapi wali attend night vigils? Tulikuwa na night vigil at Kideros. Tulilala hapo. Tukakesha hapo mpaka asubuhi. And we had a strategy. Kila mtu alikuja kivyake, alitokea kwa kona yake na tulinyamaza. Walistukia tumefika. Unataka kuniambia hawa watu wakuja hapa hawana license? Si tulikuwa na license? Yeah. We had license from Neema. But wale askari walituambia nini? Turudi. Tuliwaambia tutafanya nini? Hatutarudi, tunaongojea nini? Tunaongojea haki zetu. Tunataka Kidero atuambie, hizi nyumba amezipata na zinaishi watu ama zinaishi nguruwe. Ni kweli? Yes. Alituambia? Hakutuambia. Si ni kweli? Lakini tulishika memo, tulisomea nani? Mweke. Hakufikisha. Kwa hivyo, sisi pale kwa Wangu Kanja, tunaleta hawa mama karibu, tuko na survivors of sexual and gender based violence. Si ni kweli? Wale walikuwa raped na hata watoto wao, wale walikuwa sodomized na wakakuwa sodomized. Wakikuja pale, what we normally do, wakati tuko kwa hizi forums, si uji-explain, tunasema who we are, na hawa mama watajitokeza tu. We have different sessions, na hizo sessions zina include wanakuwa huko, wanakuwa cancelled, alafu mtu anakuja na disclosure. Si ni kweli? Okay, nikirudi kwa story yangu, ni ati ile kitu ilifanya nikatamani kuwa sana voice of the voiceless, kwa sababu leo hii I am a voice of the voiceless. Ni kuona mama akiteseka, mama anazaa, hana mtu wa kumchukulia mtoto anakuwa defiled, hana mtu wa kumpeleka hospitali, kijana anakuwa sodomized, hana mtu wa kumshughulikia. And that's why ilinifanya nikaingia kwa hii kuwa voice of the voiceless. Vile nimesimama hapa, mimi ni Mkikuyu, nimeolewa na Mjaluo. Na let me tell you, ni kazi ngumu. And I'm a widow. Mimi sijawahi pewa mahari. Sijawahi pewa ile mali yangu ile. But today nasimama hivi because I have a right. Nilinunua shamba yangu na nikajisimamia. Kwa sababu nilijua that was not the end of that life. I had to have another life because I have children and I'm still voice of the voiceless. Ndio nikuje niwaonyeshe wale akina mama wenzangu wako pale wapi? Pale mashinani. Hizi ndito akina mama. Si hata hapa kuna mama wamepitia hiyo janga. Si kuna wakati hatungeweza kusimama tukaongea. Hata mimi singeweza kusimama nikaongea mbele ya umati. Ilikuwa ni shida. Watu wakiulizwa wakina mama wako wapi? Nilikuwa na shy off. Na ngoja kuona mama mwingine amesimama. But today I can stand, I can sing, and I can tell the policeman you are doing the right thing and you are doing the wrong thing. I can stand and tell my chief, please, wacha tu hapo, wacha tu. I'm proud actually when we come to the word of struggle. What do we mean struggle? We are struggling and we have so many struggles in our life. There are those who are struggling because of the daily bread. There are those who are struggling because they have not met their needs or justice has not been done on them, I being one of them. And by injustice was done on the land issue. We are a group of women, sauti ya wanawake. When we come to the land issues, maybe there is a forum for the politicians, for the religious people. We just chip in, and we chip in with a song, we sing, and there already we are ready. We just say, so and so has been affected on the land issue. We need your help. And that way we have managed, because a woman needs to be empowered. I personally, I can say there was a time I was stable financially. Why am I saying so? I was having 3 tractors, and with these tractors, I was doing business on plowing land. But because of this struggle of my land, because I was affected, everything went out. I had no money, but I didn't give up on struggling. I said, come what or what, this is my land, I need it. And that's why I struggled. I went even to Kilimanjaro. I'm lucky. During those struggles, I have managed to meet different people. And these different people, like the NLC chairman, the politicians, Nyumba ya Mumbi, ActionAid, activists, how everyone have managed at least to get a step somewhere. Because after the Kilimanjaro initiative, that was last year, November, early this year, on May, I have managed to get a title deed. Now I have the title deed by the name Cecilia Wanjiku Ng'ang'a. I also have to make sure that these other women, we have 150 women who are ready to stand and give out per their struggle on the land issues because they don't have the title. That's why I'll continue struggling. Because even me, I have managed to get that title deed because there is someone somewhere who hold me my hand and said, Cecilia, pass here, you make it. And I passed. I remember there was a time the governor came in our area. He was having a public meeting. And that day we had a lot of problem. There was one woman who was in jail because that she was being said that she has ameingia kwa shamba la wenyewe. Trespass. That was he was accused on trespassing somebody's chamber. So she was in the cell. And do you know what happened? That day, during the meeting, the MC could not give us a time, at least so that we can talk to the governor and give out our views. And then I just decided, what are we going to do? We just became mad, only for 5 minutes. Sometimes you need to be mad, whether you like it or not. If you are struggling, you need to be mad. We just became mad for 5 minutes. Me and behind all the women, behind me, we went in up to where the governor was sitting. And we said, we want to talk to you. There is a woman who is in cell, and yet she has not stolen. There are Shabab who are fighting us. You are not catching them. You are not putting them in cell, but you are only putting us in cell. So we want her to be released. Immediately, she was released. So we need to empower women. Let women be empowered so that they will be courageous. And from there, we have managed to come up during International Women's Day. Sauti ya Wamama, we have to make sure tumelipia mtoto moja school fees. This year ule mtoto tumemlipia 40,000. And we are the ones who contribute. We just sit together, we agree as women, every group women will bring 200 or 1,000, or per what you can be managed to give us, you just give us and we pay the fees directly to school. Why are we doing that? Because we want to empower this mama. It costs you nothing to give out your voice. And that is why we are Wamama, Wasauti, Walamu, and we are proud for that. Thank you.
At times when we see faces, we hear voices, okay? We are caught up in a quagmire, the way our country is. At the back of my mind, as a woman, am I responsible? My answer always remains yes. I'm not here to wash my dirty linens in public, but I'm here at least to break the silence, because at times, as women, we are weak and we stand firm to our families. My husband Otai, he was working with Kenya Revenue Authority when we met, but his life was cut too short. He died of HIV. I stood for the family, and I still do. I too have been HIV positive for the last, I'm clocking about, heading to 30 years. Being HIV is not a death sentence, yeah? But at times, without proper knowledge or proper counseling, at least you can go to depression. I'm a product of WOFAC, and I went through what? Counseling. I accepted the reality. By then, women who are positive, they joined up together and formed WOFAC. We were fighting against HIV in Kenya, whereby the ARVs were not available. We were buying, my family medication, 100,000 Kenya shillings for my medication, and also 100 Kenya shillings for my husband. Money to us was not a problem because he was working with KRA. Are we together? But at times, there are other circumstances whereby now I had to carry a big load to stand firm for my family, 2, to stand for my husband, 3, to stand firm for the society. We had to go holding placards, ARVs to be available. Tuliandamana kwa parliament, hapa GPO tukiweka nini? Banners. Signatures, tukisik signatures zenyu, MSF, Oxfam, they were there, Action Aid, they were there. Tukisema now, ARVs to be available. We went to parliament, the bill was passed in the afternoon. That was my first time going to parliament. And we were wearing trousers. Kikiumana nimbi, ni mbio. So at times, fighting, it depends on whom are you fighting, where and how. Are we together?
Yeah.
Yeah? But if you have an objective and you have a common goal, okay? And together, all things are what? Are possible. It was passed. We continued. Formation of National AIDS Control Council, we are working together in conjunction with NASCOP, whereby we get our IEC material. The issue of capacity building, the way my sister has said, yes, capacity building. We have been trained with the Center for African Studies, CAFS, and UNIFEM, UNAIDS, all of those, name them. When the disease came to our family, I was the one who was blamed, I'm the one who brought it. When Otai died, I'm the one who was killed. I could not go to Chiromo to pick my husband's body because Otai's family did not want me to do so. Why? Because of the little benefit that he had in KRA. As a woman, I don't have a say. They are the ones who went to Chiromo, but when they came back with the body, I told them, he was your brother, he was your son, but he is my husband. I stood firm. We could not travel to Rusinga by then. I said, what I need here, I need the burial permit. The burial permit that we are being given so that when you go back home, you bury the body, then the chief rubber stamps, then you come back with it, yeah? So that you can process the what? The death certificate. That same evening, the issue of culture aspect of it, the issue of Cherobur, which is there. So I had one gentleman who was at my place, and I thought the Shamba boy had gone for off, then he's the one who was still doing what? The Shamba work. Little did I know he was my husband to be. We had a group, a family meeting in the evening with all elders there, the issue of respect. At least respect me, I respect you. And I'm a very good listener before I take what? Action. I listened. Oh, you are my father-in-law, yeah? You came when you were still young, but now you are, Mama, you have your own boma? Yes. And you know what? All these are my sons. And you know what? I want you to choose one to inherit you. But before that, he was called. When he came, amekuja ukiangalia tu. When he came, the seat that at least at home, where we are coming from, the one that is respected, at least is special to Mgeni. I saw him going there where Daddy was. Daddy's seat, he sat there. Then Kasema, hey, I want you at least to be inherited. Akasimama. I said, Rudindo, have you finished? Yes. So I said, thank you. When I came here, yes, I was a little girl, but now I'm a mature woman. And I'm very sorry. I did not come here to trade with my body. The following day, they took everything. So when I came back, I had to start from where I left. Going to KRA, nikienda hazina sako, kwenda kutafuta benefits, nimekuja na hiyo. Already nafika huko tayari, my brother-in-law ameshafika huko. No, next of kin Mary, alishaenda kapeana pesa. By then I stood firm. Nikamwambia, what? Ati, I'm not Mary Otai, I'm called Rose Atieno Otai. Na hiyo umeshani, nikasema hapana. Tutarudia huko. Narudi tena KRA. KRA, kuko na will ile iliwachwa hapa because the will unaweza. With KRA I knew. When I conceived my third born daughter, nilikuwa na nini? Nilikuwa nimejihami. We had to change everything. The name that the family knew was Joseph Migogwa Otae. But the one that at least tulijua siri yetu ilikuwa Tobias ndege otaye with Y. So my father-in-law comes all the way from Rusinga. Akifika KRA anasema nimekuja kuchukua benefit ya kijana yangu Joseph. KRA pia anashangaa. Joseph, hatuna mfanyikazi ule anaitwa nani? Joseph, tuko na Tobias ndege. Pia mimi na wasili huko, I've come for my benefits za nini za mzee. So ilikuwa rift in between. So now by then, as a woman I didn't have a say. Are you getting me? Yeah? Under customary law, I didn't have what? A say. Kinda KRA pia nikifika huko stigma was very high. I remember very well the first check that I was given for that gratuity with KRA, it was for 100,000 by then. Do you know, it bounced. I still own that check. I have it. Somebody intentionally did it because I am a woman and I'm weak. Are we together? And also, he made use of the condition that I did what? That I had, being HIV positive. When I went to Rusinga, I just disclosed my status to the DO. Kaambia, afande, mkubwa, unajua mimi, wacha nisikufiche. Niko na virusi ndio kwa sababu naona watu wa Rusinga wananifanya hivi. Kama singekuwa na virusi, hawangenifanya hivi. With him also, he had little knowledge about HIV. Akaniambia, look here, itakoma. The death certificate that I took, at the back of it, from the village elder, assistant chief, DO up to PC of Nyanza, waliweka rubber stamp. Akaniambia, madam, I wish you well. When I came, nani kama mimi, gava mcheze, ambia hapa right. I rendered my services to Beacon of Hope when First Lady, the late Madam Lucy Kibaki, I trained them on home-based care. She came for graduation. Madam Jena kanambia, naweza kufanyia nini Madam Rose? Naweza kulipa hela ngapi? Nikamwambia hela si kitu, lakini ukinielimishia hawa wasichana wangu wawili ambao wako Shyness Girls, nitashukuru. Yeah? Wamemaliza wanafanya kazi. Last born. Naendesha gari nyingine hata nilishangaa. Sasa niuze hii gari yako ama naiba.
Na most of the time watu wakikuja pamoja hivi kuongea kuhusu hizi vitu, saa zingine tunaona tu pengine ni vitu tumezoea kuongea kuhusu, si ndio? Tukiwa mtaani ama tukiwa wapi tunaongea kuhusu hizi vitu kila siku. So mpaka zikakuwa kawaida sana mpaka the vitu zi happen na inaendelea ku happen, si ndio? But I think the biggest problem that tuko nayo na inequality kuendelea ama watu kunyanyaswa kuendelea is because watu wamekuwa comfortable na shida zao. Si ndio? Mko na shida mpaka umezoea hizo shida, si ndio? Mpaka uoni inaweza kuwa better zaidi. So the problem so mtoto wako pale anaenda shule saa hii afai kwenda shule hapo. Maisha yako ile pesa unapata saa hii kusema kweli upate pesa. Hiyo biashara uko nayo ndogo saa hii ufai kwa nayo biashara inafaa. Kila kitu uko nayo saa hii inafaa kwa better. Since umezoea na umezoea kusurvive. Si ndio? So kwa mtu amelelewa Dora, so Dora hapo na cheki is hiyo garbage umezoea mpaka imekuwa part of you, si ndio? Niko na kidonda uko na kidonda hapo kwa mwili. Siku ya kwanza nini ndio unashtuka ukiona, si ndio? But kesho ukiamka au kukufa. Kesho yake ukiamka au kukufa. Next week umeamka hujakufa, next month umeamka hujakufa, mpaka unaizoea. Unless iwe na uchungu, tu na chungu utaenda kunywa tu Panadol alafu ikizidi zaidi na unaenda. That's why hata kwa TV anasema kama Mungu akizidi pata ushauri wa daktari. Unaona? Because sisi tumezoea shida mpaka itakuwa part of us. So I think that's the only time inequality ama kukosa usawa ina thrive, because tumezoea shida mpaka tutaki, mpaka tumezoea mpaka imekuwa part of us, mpaka imekuwa familia yetu kuwa na shida. But Kenya najaribu kusema sasa ni aufai kwa pali huko sasa. So utafanya nini kuihusu? Kuna wale tu mavijana wenzao wanauliwa, mtoto wake waliuliwa sababu alikuwa tu anakaa kona fulani na alikuwa na watu wabaya, na hakuwa mwizi, but yeye akaenda kauliwa. Alafu mtoto mwingine akauliwa pale, mwingine akauliwa pale. Mkazoea, si ndio? Mpaka hao mavijana wacha wauliwe wote sasa hata. Si ndio? Mama alikuwa na HIV. Kwanza akanyimwa dawa, akaenda kaolewa. Akaenda kakufa. Watoto wake kakufa, watoto wake kwa shida. Alafu kwa hiyo si maisha. Saa hii kwa nchi yetu saa hii mambo ya shule, mtoto mmoja class moja hivi iko na watoto kama 100. But si bora mtoto amesoma. Si tumezoea. So mimi saa hii kama mimi ni mwanamuziki, najua maisha unazuia kwa mwanamuziki unajua hii maisha ingine na unajua hii maisha ingine. Mimi nimelelewa na maisha yangu yote. Alafu nikakuja nikapata na kina Ben Philip na nani, tukajua kuna maisha ingine. Basi sasa sisi wewe umevuka, unasahau watu wengine. Na watu wako huko wanakuona ukienda kadani, for example mimi nikienda Dandora same hivi ndio nakuanga, but nikienda Dandora mimi naonekana mimi ndio naweza saidia kila mtu, si ndio? Si same hivi ndio nakuanga, but unaona wewe ndio tegemeo. So inakuwa burden. So inaonekana wale wase wote wanaishi Dandora walifaulu hawezi kurudi Dandora sababu wanaona ndio burden. Mtu anaanza kuwa mtu wa mtaani na kuwa burden. I don't think even unafaa. So when tuko happy na mambo ya usawa, kusema kweli unakaa hapa ndio umekuwa hapa kutoka asubuhi, si ndio? Umechoka, utaenda mkule lunch, tuende nyumbani, si ndio? But nini itabadilika sasa? Utaenda tu kwa maisha yako. Matatu ndio hiyo. Petition ipitishwe. Kuna president mwingine au msiko na president mwingine. Tuendelee tu tunasafari tu ya nini. Mimi kwa kweli mimi sitaki maisha yangu hivi. Na mimi ni kijana sasa. Sitaki nikuwe miaka 50 na mtoto wangu aendelee the same thing na hiyo process yote. Mimi nataka hiki kitu ikuwe cancel kwangu na kwa kila mtu yule anajua. So nitafanya nini kuhusu? Nitatumia muziki, nitatumia rasilimali zile niko nazo, nitatumia connection zile niko nazo kupunguza hiyo shida. And I think sasa the reason why everybody is here sababu wewe unahisi hiyo kitu kila siku, si ndio? So hii ni recruitment. So kama unataka kurecruitiwa, wewe rudi tu kwa shida. Na maisha itaendelea tu. So anyway, nashukuru sana. Na usisahau the biggest enemy ama the biggest enabler ya inequality ni watu wa comfortable na shida. Asante.